Okay, so today's guest speaker is a fellow I met a couple of years ago through my son, Richard, who runs the Ivy League, the Long Island Ivy League Students Association. And so I met Rich a couple of years ago when he was looking financing for his first business. And I recently spoke at his group, the Student Leadership Council in Manhattan, where I got to meet other fabulous entrepreneurs and leaders of the new world. And so it's with great pleasure I introduce you to Rich Mangione.
So first thing I want to say is that this class is amazing. So I went to Harvard, right? And we'd finish the day with a bunch of numbers on this board. But when I started a business, I had absolutely no practical experience. You know, you spend so much time thinking about numbers when you start a business, there really aren't any numbers. You don't have any customers, you don't have that much money to deal with, so what good is knowing all these numbers? Having this experience right now where you are pitching to your class, where you're standing up and speaking in front of your class, that is an amazing opportunity. So I just want to get a sense. How many of you are here because you're kind of interested in jumping into the entrepreneurship world, but you really haven't made your decision yet? Okay. Now, how many of you are here because you're pretty damn sure you're going to end up in entrepreneurism and you figure you might as well get some classes under your belt? Okay, good. So we have a good split. So before we jump into this, you guys can write down 2 or 3 ideas or 2 or 3 reasons why you want to be an entrepreneur when you leave this school, or even now, some of you that already are. Now, the reason I ask you to do this is because when I was talking to my folks and to my friends about starting up a company, I got a lot of reasons why it would be a good idea. And many of them turned out to be true, but a few of them, the ones that were most common, ended up being completely false. And I wanted to highlight for you what I think are the 3 biggest fallacies in starting up a company. Number 1, that being an entrepreneur is a very efficient way of making a lot of money. It's not. It's not. There are much easier ways of making money. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're a founder of a company, you're the last guy to get paid. Your suppliers get paid, your team gets paid, your investors get paid, you're at the end of the chain. And that's something that you have to be okay with. So the companies today, even the companies that are Series A funding, right? They have about $5 million in funding. Those guys are making about 1/3 of what they could be making if they were in corporate. Now, of course, you get equity when you're a startup founder, right? And if your company succeeds, one day that equity will be a lot. But in the meantime, you have very little salary. I actually think that the easiest way to make money, if that's really what you're after, the easiest way to make money is go find a startup that already has traction. They have a few $1 million in funding. They have a team. They have an idea. They have customers. They have product. Hop on their team. They've already taken care of the risk for you. They've already shown that they can build a sustainable business, and they have money. You'll get your salary. Your salary will probably be better than the founders, and you'll have stock options as well. But something tells me that's not why you guys are here. So the second fallacy I heard of was you get to work for yourself. So can you give me some ideas that you think, who might else you be working for besides yourself when you're running a company?
Customers and clients.
Excellent. Yep.
Shareholders.
Absolutely.
Artists.
Artists, absolutely. So all those are exactly right. We have this image where when we're running a company that we're the guy at the top and there's a pyramid of stuff below us. Flip that pyramid upside down. You're the guy at the bottom. Your job is to serve everybody else. You take care of your investors. You take care of your team. When the shit hits the fan, you're the one that cleans it up. And that's a good thing. And the reason you do that is because you love your idea so much. So if you want to work for yourself, I actually think that the closest thing to do is to be an independent contractor. Independent contractors have their customers themselves, and that's all they have to worry about. But again, I don't think that's why you're here today. Now, the last fallacy, or the third most common fallacy I hear a lot, is entrepreneurship is great because it gives me the flexibility I want in my day. I can go take a 2-hour lunch. That's true, I could take a 2-hour lunch. Let's say I'm chatting with somebody, a really interesting person, I don't have any meetings lined up, I'm gonna have a 2-hour lunch with that person. But you know what that means? That means I'm gonna be working till 2 a.m. at night. Because while your hours move around a lot, you still have to make those hours up somewhere. So you're going to end up working a lot more than somebody at a 9-to-5 job. Flexibility is a good reason to start a company. So turning it back to you guys, what were some of the ideas that you came up with? Why do you want to be entrepreneurs?
To follow my passion, not be limited, and solve a need in the world.
I love that idea. All of those actually.
Legacy. To leave, to build something that I know I built.
Excellent.
Leave a print somehow
You,
in the world.
so similar legacy, right?
Right. Yeah.
To make a change and to do things better than other people.
Okay.
To assist the economy and like the perpetual trend of the world.
So you have this sort of patriotic spirit, it's like
Not patriotic, but
or sorry, this like, I want to do well for my society. I want to bring them to the next curve.
Basically.
Excellent. Okay. All those answers are actually really good answers. And what I found is there are two common characteristics that define whether or not you really should be an entrepreneur. Number one is you've identified a problem in the world that bothers you, and it bothers you enough that you're willing to spend the time, effort, sweat, and tears to solve it. Now, I think you guys were talking about open table for tutoring, right? And I've heard some of the ideas that you were talking about today. When you go to pursue them, it's going to be a really hard path. But you're going to follow that path because for whatever reason, whether it's water or beauty products, it bothers you that problem exists. So that's number one. You have to care about a problem enough to actually put your effort into it. Number two, you have to be weird. So, and trust me, you're all here because you're weird. Ted went to all these classes, he scouted out you guys, you're different. So most people optimize for comfort, right? They say, how can I get more money by working the same number of hours? How can I reduce my travel to work so I can spend more time at home? Those aren't the questions you guys are asking, right? Questions you guys are asking is, how can I build something better? So you have to be bothered by something enough to put effort into it, and you have to not be a normal person who seeks to optimize comfort. So I know a few of you, we talked about a few projects that you're working on now. Does anybody have a few projects, it doesn't have to be business related, where you put a lot of time and effort into it, to seeing it through, and you saw it through because it was something that you were really passionate about? Okay.
I'm Syrian. I come from Syria,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to build a community here for Syria. In the U.S. history, there was something called Little Syria in Manhattan. We're trying to get that back.
Yeah, and I imagine you faced a million roadblocks when doing that, right?
I faced a lot. I've been doing it for about 3 years and a half.
3.5. So you're doing it for 3.5 years, which tells me that every time you hit a roadblock, you just keep going.
Yes.
Why?
I have passion.
Yeah.
I believe in it, and I don't think something as little as I don't think something little can knock me down because I have something big that will do.
Yep. So you guys are tackling big, heavy problems. You want to tackle big, heavy problems, you got to have that passion. You got to keep sort of ticking along. Now, once you've actually decided that you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to find that being a founder or co-founder teaches you a lot about yourself. So the first thing is you're going to have to get to know your competitive advantages. What are the things in the world that you're better at than most of the other people you know? And you might think, I don't know, what is something that I'm better at than most people? But the answer is actually usually right there in front of you. So are you a social person? Don't assume that that's something that everybody's good at. Being social actually becomes very difficult, very hard for some people. Are you somebody who, when you take a problem set, you put it down, you sit down at your desk, and you finish that problem set without getting up once? That's a hell of a lot of focus, and a lot of people struggle with focus. Here, right now, while you're still in college, is a great opportunity to start identifying what your competitive advantages are and harnessing them. So once you understand what those competitive advantages are, they'll almost feel like a muscle in your body, right? You'll have a neural motor connection where you can see this is something that's part of me and this is how I exercise it. And when you actually do get to that point, what you're going to want to do is take every situation and figure out how you can twist it to play to your competitive advantages. So one of the things for me, I have a bootstrapping background. So one of the companies I started was a marinara company. I'm more of a technical guy, so starting a pasta sauce company at first wasn't something that I was really thrilled about. But when I looked at it, I noticed that there was a lot of repetition in marinara companies, right? You have to order every 3 weeks. You have to talk to all your suppliers. Your customers, they order like in regular periods, even though they don't realize it. And so what I did was I built up a database of the order histories, the production lines, etc., and built a little bit of code that now tells me when do I need to start focusing on getting the next production run on. I know before a retailer calls me that they're low on inventory. So my competitive strength is not cooking. I'm a terrible cook. I maybe cook chicken sometimes. But my competitive strength is a tech background. And you can always find ways to apply your competitive strength to things once you know it pretty well. Now on the flip side is being an entrepreneur is going to make you feel very uncomfortably close to your weaknesses. Before you actually go out there, put yourself on the line by jumping into the market, you could hide your weaknesses. But if those weaknesses prevent you from actually building a team, building a product, that's going to be a real problem. And the first thing you're going to have to do is be honest with yourself about those weaknesses. And the hardest thing you're going to have to do is talk about them. As entrepreneurs, we always have this face on, that everything's going well. Hey, how was your day this week? Oh, great, I got 20 new customers. Oh, how was your day this week? Oh, awesome, we just made a new product, right? Entrepreneurs always do that. But if you don't drop that mask, you won't find your weaknesses. You don't find your weaknesses, you're going to have trouble. You have to understand that there are other entrepreneurs out there. They all have weaknesses, and you can help each other. That's critical to overcoming those weaknesses. So, one sort of quick example of that. I was in a plane once. It was a single-engine plane, and the engine failed. It stalled. And I was less nervous in that moment than the first time I did a public speaking thing. Seriously, I'm not even joking. I was in the plane, I was like, okay, well, it's stalled. It's probably overheated. It'll be fine, right? You're hanging out there. A light plane, it's going to glide. It made sense to me. Public speaking, I don't understand why it's so, why it can be so scary. And it's scary to a lot of people, but it is. But being an entrepreneur means stepping out there, stepping on the stage, and confronting that weakness before it confronts you. Now, being an entrepreneur is going to push you to your limits. But you're here because you're looking for something like that. You're not here. You guys didn't want to take an easy class. You took a class that was going to teach you a lot about business. When we first started Test Tracks, the company that my co-founder and I were working on, we had a lot of college debt and we had no income. So we started tutoring for a well-known SAT tutoring company. We were making about $10 an hour. We weren't even getting 40 hours a week. We had so little money on hand that we couldn't pay for the oil in our house, so we couldn't turn the heat on in the winter. We had a space heater that we put on the desk next to us so that we could actually continue typing. Our first winter was hell. That's how I knew my co-founder was going to stick around for the long haul. Because if he didn't abandon me then, he was not going to abandon me. And he was in for the long haul. The other thing you're going to find out is, yeah, you might be willing to put it all on the line for your company, but is your significant other, is your boyfriend or girlfriend willing to handle the swings, the ups and the downs and the inconsistencies? Can you schedule that 7:30 p.m. date? Probably not. You're probably going to be somewhere around 6:45 to 8 p.m. That's just sort of the role of being an entrepreneur. And lastly, in terms of finding your limits, fear of failure is something that holds us back. It's something that holds even the brightest people back. Because the hard part is, the more you succeed, the bigger the fall is. And if you're always looking down at that chasm, if you're always looking down and seeing how far it could go and what people think of it, you're not ever going to step out on the ledge. So step out on the ledge before you start feeling that fear. And don't let that ever hold you back, because I'm telling you, it holds back some of the brightest people today. Now, those are the challenges, right? The weaknesses, the limits, what you're going to push yourself, but you're going to surprise yourself as well. You're going to find out that you can work 80 hours a week and not even realize that you were working. Like, I've had weeks where my co-founder Tony and I, we worked so hard in the final days before our production, pushing our product, that we didn't buy food, we forgot about it, so we were literally eating bread and water for that week. We just were so into the code. Like, that's all we cared about. You think 80 hours a week working is hard? It is hard, but you're not working. You're playing. You're doing your job. You're doing something you love. You'll take on projects that you thought you could never do. So when we started Test Tracks, neither of us had any idea how to code. So the first thing that we did was we opened up a computer and we Wikipedia'd how does the internet work. Because we literally had no idea how to even begin, right? And this was also before there were boot camps, right? Now there's a million boot camps. Oh, become a developer in like 6 months. Great. that was before that. So what we did was, figured out what a server was. And I think you mentioned this, like when you find something that you're really interested in, you just devour it. You go online, you figure out, you didn't know anything about water or water systems, you went on there and you devoured it. That's a critical skill. There's gonna be a lot of things that you don't know anything about. But your ability to go research it, your ability to learn about it and retain that is key to being an entrepreneur. And lastly, you're gonna deal with seemingly impossible situations that you're going to look at and you're going to say, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this. And you're going to get through it. And every single time you do get through those, whether it's a funding round, whether it's a failed platform, you get stronger and stronger because it makes it that harder for you to get taken down. So before, I want to talk about the open table for tutors idea, but before I get to that, I have 3 last pieces of advice, if I could be so bold. So number 1 is time is your most valuable commodity. You've probably heard that several times, and it's true for everybody, but it is critically true for an entrepreneur. If you don't manage your time well, it'll kill you. There are a million people that are looking to either get your advice on things or different projects that you should be focusing on. If you don't manage your time well, it'll take you down. Number 2, I think the best entrepreneurs are those who are brazen enough to jump into a project that they know nothing about and figure out how to lead it, but who are humble enough to be relatable so that they can lead. A lot of leaders place themselves at the top of this pyramid, and they govern almost by, not necessarily through fear, but through authority. You need to be humble so that even the smallest person in your organization can talk to you and you feel like you're equals. Without humility, you can't lead a team. And lastly, I alluded to this earlier, gain exposure to business while you're still in college. Because once you leave this building, you're going to now understand all the gaps in your knowledge. You're going to say, oh, I wish I had learned about this, I wish I had learned that. Me, I wish I had studied computer science. But I can't do it now. I mean, I can if I go back. It's an enormous investment. Get out there now, talk to some people, get advice, do a few projects, figure out what's going on so that you can still change that course while you're still here in this classroom now, while you still have that opportunity. So before we get into the open table for tutoring idea, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, what's up?
What does your company do?
Yeah, so I have 4 companies. So number 1 is Test Tracks. Basically what we do is we allow companies to source small 20-hour projects to current college students. It gives students the opportunity to test drive different industries, build a resume, get paid. It gives the opportunity to the company to find and test drive potential recruits. I have a marinara company, sells marinara, there's not much more to it than that. I have a medical device company. It's an insert that goes into the foot that alleviates pain from atrophied fat pads underneath the ball of the foot. And I have a tutoring company, which also does what you'd expect it to do.
Wow, so I'll tell you, I actually use Test Tracks. I wanted to see, I love the idea. And again, as Rich said, the great thing about an entrepreneur is take somebody who knows nothing about a topic and then can jump in and be passionate about it and make it successful. I love this idea. So when Rich came over to my house a couple of years ago and said, hey, I have this idea, we're taking our friends from Harvard and other Ivy League schools and we're renting them out to big companies who want to get access to these Ivy League kids while they're still in school. So the Ivy League students get to see whether they like the company or not, and the company gets to see whether they like the student or not. So lo and behold, I gave this project to one of the students about maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half, and I asked her what the stock market would do. And when I tell you this, you're not going to believe the intuition of this. I asked her what happens to the stock market when and if oil prices drop. This is when oil was $120 a barrel 2 years ago, with no inclination, had no idea that the market was going to drop to hell and drop 80%. And I asked her to go back historically and tell me what's going to happen if the market drops, so I'll know how to act in my portfolio. I'll be able to short stocks, I'll be able to know what's happening. And the girl went back and historically, she went on what information was available back then. Okay, it wasn't like anything that ever happened today. They never had too much oil in the history of this world. So it was like an anomaly. She was fairly close, and her work was very good, and we went back and forth via email. And I said, wow, this is a good business. What other type of things can I use these students for? And this is 2 years ago, so Rick and his partner Tony have been able to make a business doing that. But at the same time, as you heard, they didn't have oil for their house. I mean, this is an unbelievable story. Two kids, two friends from Harvard, come out of school to try to bootstrap a business, go a winter using space heaters to sleep in to come up with a business while they're tutoring. A natural run, right? Tutoring, one of my businesses that I had, I provided a tutoring show for national cable TV networks. It just ended after 4 years, called Education in Demand. The website's still up. And that's why I wanted to meet and talk a little bit more about Rich, about the idea of tutoring on demand, or more like tutoring open table. And I asked him to say a few words today, just to see if there's any level of excitement, interest in here, so I'll know whether I want to invest in that business with him, and if anybody else here wants to get involved. So.
All right, so as I understand it, the open table tutoring idea is tutors have a slot that they put on a platform, right? 3 hours where they're available to tutor geometry. And then students can sign up for these slots after. Is that correct, Ed?
Correct.
Okay. So one of the real problems with tutoring as it is there's a lot of filler time. You're talking to parents, you're traveling to and from destinations. All this not only adds to your time debt, which I was telling you before, time management is everything, but also adds to your bottom line, costs on your bottom line. Having a mechanism where you can sit in a room and have people teach you, or sorry, have people come to be taught by you, is significantly decreases a lot of those costs, right? Now, there are a couple of things that you have to think about when moving over to that model. Number one, a tutoring relationship, tutoring-student relationship, is unique even to a student-teacher relationship in that rapport is everything, right? So when the whole point of paying a private tutor is that the tutor and the student get to develop a sort of understanding of how that student learns. Once that understanding is had, they can then apply it to other future projects, right? So if I understand in math that somebody is not good at a particular stage in algebra, even when I'm tutoring her in, let's say, linear algebra of some sort, I can understand that those sections are the ones that she's going to have trouble with. One other thing that I would want to sort of just flag is that a lot of high-value, high-net-worth clients don't want to be inconvenienced. So if those students have cars, no problem. But if they don't have cars, the parents aren't going to want to drive them to the house. We've actually found that we could double the rate by going to the house instead of by having students come to us. But these problems are not unavoidable, not unsolvable problems, right? You can make it more convenient for the parent by maybe doing it at the school. Kids at the school anyway, right? So if you could do some sort of partnership with the school where the parent doesn't have to do anything out of her way or his way, that solves that problem. The long-term relationship. Every student needs tutoring in multiple subjects. Tutoring is now a $6 billion industry and it's growing rapidly because they find that the quality of teaching and the tutoring is way higher. It's a personalized, sort of experience. But you can still break that up across subjects, right? So you could have one tutor that does one math and science, another tutor that does social studies and English, and they'll still learn a lot of those same tendencies of the students. So even though you have open slots, you can still maintain some sort of consistency. Have you guys had any run-ins, any roadblocks, or?
Well, again, we're thinking it out loud
Right.
to see what other issues or problems that tutors actually have. So could you talk a little bit, because we heard Megan last week and her idea of manicure and nail salons and actually locating nail salons that want to join up, very much like Open Table does to restaurants.
Yeah.
So we know that formula, we know that model works. And we also know that nail salons have lots of open appointments, as do hair salons during the day. So if they can fill that up, very much like Uber fills up their cabs and have no downtime. So we were thinking that maybe tutoring is another one of those things where someone would slot in, especially in a heavy urban area like Manhattan,
Yeah.
where people, will sign up for this $100 an hour tutor for SAT or for trigonometry or chemistry, match them both,
Yeah.
and then you show up at the person's house.
Right.
If they've already paid on the app, so you don't have to worry about that. That money's going to go to you as soon as they sign off that you showed up and you did your tutoring session. And that would be the end of that. But what kind of pitfalls are there, if you have reviews of the tutors, reviews of the pain in the ass mom and the other student who falls asleep or doesn't show up?
Right.
Do you charge people who cancel their appointment a half hour? Some of the pitfalls, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Cancellation is a big one, right? So the way we do it is we charge half rate if you do cancel within like 20 minutes of the actual appointment. But one of the things that I think you might want to keep in mind when you compare open table tutoring with an Uber with nail salon is that tutoring is not a commodity in the way that Uber is. So Uber, you drive from point A to point B, and as long as you get there safely and the car is clean, you're good to go. It's a commodity essentially, right? Like everybody has the ability to do that. In tutoring, not only is your market size a little bit smaller in terms of your potential tutors, but every experience is tailored. And the more you sort of deal with that one individual, you're tailoring it more and more and more, which makes it a little bit more difficult to sort of substitute that good for another good.
So you're saying the individuals that maybe
yeah.
like the manicurist, are you comfortable with that same
Right.
manicurist that she knows your nails already?
Yes.
Do you think it's the same kind of thing in tutoring?
I think
you get used to that tutor and there's
Right. So what I would do is I put it on a graph. So first thing you have Uber over here, which is a commodity effectively. Then you have the nail salon, which there is customization going on there, but it's generally relatively the same, I would think. And then over here you have tutoring, which is highly specialized. So to make this work, you have to focus on how to make this highly specialized section work with logistical advantages of the open table system. And I do think that there are ways to do it, but it's not going to be as simple as put up a market of tutors, put up a market of students, and have them all overlap. And I'd be more than happy to talk with you guys individually about this.
Now, most of the tutors, by the way, former teachers or current teachers. Is there any generalization you could say who is a tutor? Just a smart kid from school? Or?
So there are two big groups of tutors. Number one is, like you said, past teachers or current teachers. Number two is entrepreneurs, because it's a really good way to fund yourself. You know exactly how much time you're going to spend, you know exactly how much money you're going to make. It's the sort of like guaranteed paycheck that you need at this stage. So.
Okay, very, very good. Any questions you have for Rich? It was a riveting conversation. Got you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you actually tutor in like every curriculum or?
Yes, so that was something that was a little bit different about us. So when we started tutoring, Tony and I started tutoring, we found that we went in there, we just started tutoring any subject whatsoever, and it was fine. We would just, read up on it the night before. Yeah, don't tell anyone. But what we did find was that it was actually much more common for other tutors to do, I only do math, I only do science, I only do history. That's actually a real pain in the neck for the parents, right? Because now they have to have 8 different tutors coming to the house. So a lot of times when we'd come in and like 7 or 8 tutors would be. Maybe not 7 or 8, but like they would usually have like a lot of tutors. So that is an advantage, yep.
But like, you wouldn't be as specialized as like someone who's only focusing on math or science and stuff, because even if you know a lot of different topics, you're not as specialized as like a math professor.
Well, yes and no. So there's only some like a high enough degree that you need to be specialized in, right? So we tutor up to BC calculus, and we've tutored many times. So it hasn't been our experience yet where there's such a specialized topic that we haven't already covered in our more general experience.
Now, to be a tutor in your company, you have to like pass a test or something?
So it's Tony and I, so it's like we know each other well, so we could sort of do that. And then we have one ex-founder from another company that we knew very well, and we actually have an assistant superintendent from Jericho School District, who's a lot of experience with tutoring.
Do you think that tutoring will be just as effective via video chat?
We have found it to not be. So a lot of students don't pay as much attention as if you're standing right there. Also, you can't jump up and talk around. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but when students are sitting at their desk all day for 6 hours, and then you're trying to tutor them and they're sitting still again, it's hard. So when I go tutoring, I'm always moving around, talking to them, having them jump up around, teaching them about geometry with basketball and that sort of stuff. Not so easy to do. But it's done, and people do it and they make money off of it. Their rates are usually a lot less so. Yep.
Yeah, just to jump onto the video chat, do you think the reason why students aren't paying as much attention by video chat because the lesson's too long? So let's say you want to do video chat on tutors, but you want to cut it down to a small, like 5-minute session. Because as a student, sometimes I have questions about like calculus, and it's not about a whole long lesson, it's about one small topic.
Yeah.
I could probably figure out 5 minutes, and I want to tutor for that for 5 minutes. Do you think that will work?
That's an excellent question. We actually just implemented that within the past like 3 months. So what we did was we broke our sessions up into 15-minute sessions, and you could stack them on top of each other with a 5 to 10 minute break. And we found that to be way more effective because.
Do you think that you can do that with on video, online?
I think that with a concerted effort, you can get it done on video. What we found is that the parents of the students that we're tutoring will pay a lot less for that.
Right, I've seen both of them, by the way, and I've done it for my own kids, and it's less effective, but when you have nothing, it's spectacular.
Sure, it's
if you have
absolutely-
nothing, and you have somebody online, especially with a whiteboard going over it in some sort of a group conference, you're seeing them. I've seen it with more than one student, 2 or 3 students. So you can keep the price down. There's a business model there, and we've been talking about it, combination of live, video, using that type of an app, but there's something absolutely there about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry.
All right, very good. Last question.
What percentage of students actually look for tutoring?
Look for tutoring to their parents. So when they're not doing well, they look for a tutor. But one critical flaw of our company was that it's not scalable. So to Ted's point, I don't want to keep going.
No doubt. So the scalability of it, I mean, it's him and his partner, they could be busy night and day, but as you see, he has 4 businesses and he's growing. Our last question, Morgan.
What age do you mostly tutor? Is it a lot of college students?
Almost exclusively high school. Yeah, we've done a little bit of college, but mostly exclusively high school.
And those parents want to get those kids into Harvard, okay? And having 2 Harvard guys as partners going out psychologically, as a parent, they're hired. That's good enough for me. Having Harvard kids going in there, and the whole other market is SAT, LSAT, GMAT. It's an enormous multi-billion-dollar market. That's why I'm very interested in getting involved in this open table of the tutoring business. I want to thank you very much, Rich.
Thank you very much.